Hi. So today we are going to be talking about hop products, and my name is Jared Lindenmuth. So continuing on, there are a bunch of three major different forms of hop products. You're going to have whole cones, pellets, and extracts. So among these three types of products, there's different subclasses that we'll also be talking about. So we're going to go into those and look at them in more detail. We're also going to look in detail at the uses of each of these products, as well as the strengths, weaknesses, and also the storage requirements of each of these products. We'll also examine classification of hop varieties and some of the varieties and how they're used. So we'll start with cones. My head is now in the right corner, so we'll continue. So whole cone hops are the main type of hops that have been used until late 1900s. It is the original way to use hops, since they're really not, no further processing has occurred to them, so it's easy. And so unlike pellets and extracts, you don't have a lot of forms of different whole cones because of that, though there are many different hop varieties to choose from. Two type of whole cones that are available are dry cones, which are by far the most prominent way you're going to get hops, and less common, unless you live near somewhere that is growing hops, is wet cones, which have not been kilned, and there's a lot less uses that I've seen with that, because you have to be there at the right time, and the storage is really bad on wet cones. So some harvest ales have the wet cones, but other than that, you probably won't have them available to use. So should you use cones? The usage of cones and the traditional way is the traditional way to hop your beer, and so has the exact proportion of hops oils to hops vegetal matter that you can get, since it's the natural ratio. Many find that the aroma of whole cone hops is more balanced and pleasant than that of pellets that have been processed and such. And the decisions to use cones is a bit philosophic. There's a lot of people that philosophically choose to use whole cones over pellets. They have a better flavor and aroma, but others just from their preference and from the traditional sense of doing things, they'll continue to do it that way. Cone storage is going to be a lot bulkier than pellet storage, so that's kind of a lose for cones. It's going to take up more room in your cooler. When you're storing the cones, you want to keep them cold, and you can freeze them until you are ready to use them. And keep them as airtight as possible. The oxygen will oxidize the hops, the alpha acids and other components in the hops, and make your hops possibly smell cheesy, stale, old. So keep them airtight and store them in the cold. Will keep your hop cones as long as possible. Your advantage to cones is that they are going to smell better, better aroma and flavor. By many people that have tried both using cones and pellets, they've come to a consensus that at least earlier on in the life of the cones, they provide a superior product. And also the cones can help filter the wort as they pass, so that you don't clog the drain, and such as with some higher resin pellets can gunk it up. So this provides like a filter bed for it to pass through, and use of whole cones has been found to be superior for dry hopping from some perspectives. You get the more balanced aroma and finer aromas from them. The disadvantages of cones is that the whole cones, when they age, they're going to oxidize faster. They're bulkier than hops, so the storage space that you have to have is going to be larger to keep them. The whole cones will also suck up some of the wort, so while you are getting a filter bed, it's also going to keep more of the wort to itself, and so some of your product is going to be lost to that. And the alpha acids that you're going to be getting in the cones is going to be more variable than using the pellets. The pellets are all homogenized, so the cones could vary from, batch to batch, even cone to cone. So, all right, so we're going to move on to pellets now, and pelletized hops are a more recent product that's become available. There are a few different subtypes of pellets. There's type 90 pellets, type 45 pellets, isomerized pellets, and type 100 pellets. And we'll go over what each of those types are in a minute. Many of the breweries have switched over to using hop pellets from the cones because of the advantages that you get from using pellets, and there's less disadvantages as well, so we'll also talk about those. So type 90 pellets contain 90% of the non-resinous hop material, and 10% of it is going to be resin. And so this is going to be fairly close to just your regular hops, just pelletized. So there's less processing that's going on. But because it's all chopped up, the efficiency is going to be higher from using pellets, or from using these pellets. So, and this is also the most common type that you'll find in the market. So when you go out and you're looking for hops, this is going to be the typical type that you find it in. Just your standard hop in standard hop proportions, just pelletized. So the type 45 pellets are enriched pellets, so there's going to be more lupulin. And how it sounds based on type 90 and type 45 is that there should be essentially double or whatnot the amount of resinous material to non-resinous. So 45% more non-resinous material, 45% less non-resinous material than with the type 90, and more of the resin. So let's move on. Isomerized pellets are pellets that the alpha acids, you've already isomerized them. So the utilization is already pretty much complete. It's all ready to go and be dissolved into the wort. And this isomerization process is caused by heating the hops in the presence of magnesium hydroxide, which catalyzes the reaction. And lastly, the type 100 pellets, as they suggest, the type 100 pellets are just hops that have been compressed really tight, whole hop cones that have been compressed, and it's used for traditionally for casks. You'd plug it into the cask, but it can also be used for just other types of dry hopping. So should you use pellets? Pellets suffer from the processing that they have and they don't have those subtle notes that the whole hops have. Some of the aroma is lost and degraded. But with that being said, they have a lot of utilities as far as storage, and they can be utilized more as far as alpha acids are concerned, and oils and such. Pellets are great for consistency. So where we had the whole cones not always being that consistent, pellets are very consistent. And so you'll want to keep that in mind, especially when your company is growing. At first, you might be using whole hops, but as you become a larger brewery, you'll need to keep these good products that you make, these good beers that you make, consistent, so that the market has the same product and learns to love that product and can go back to it. And so again, it's a bit of a philosophical question, depending on how big you want to grow. If you're going to grow large, pellets aren't a necessity, but they're going to help a lot, probably. So you'll have to ask yourself that question. So the storage of pellets is going to be a lot better than the storage of cones. So since the pellets are more compact, they'll take up less space in your freezer. You should also seal these ones cold and vacuum pack them, like you can see in that picture there. Excuse me. And if you store them properly, they're going to last, the flavor and aroma are going to last longer and much better than whole cones over time. Whereas the whole cones will start out, with better aroma and some better flavor. Over like 6 months or so of storing these hops, the pellets are going to be better than your whole cones. They're going to have suffered less deterioration. And so the advantages of pellets, the alpha acids, as I was saying, are more consistent, and you can utilize them more. So the utilization of the alpha acids is increased compared to using whole hops. The storage capacity is a lot better. There are different types, so you have different. You can use that for different needs that you have. If you need to get type 45 so that you can make a hoppier beer without using as much hops, or you just want to reduce the level of grassy plant type notes that you're getting in your beer, you can switch to type 45 pellets and get less of that. It's easy to weigh out and use, so weighing out the whole hops can be a bit more difficult than just weighing out the pellets. And the loss of the wort is minimized because there's less surface, less leaf matter and such like that or less continuous surface area, I should say, to hold on to this liquid. The pellets are chopped up a lot smaller and they won't retain as much of the liquid. So you'll lose less wort in the end. The disadvantages of pellets are that they're less aromatic compared to the whole cones, especially at the beginning. And if they're not stored properly, they can oxidize faster than the whole cones because of how processed they are, how chopped up they are. There's more cuts in it, and that allows more oxygen to get into the different parts of the pellet, compared to the cone, which is all solid and there's only one break where they popped it off, essentially. So they're more difficult to strain the wort through than the whole cones because you get a sort of a sludge from using a lot of the hops pellets. And also using those pellets in dry hopping when you're gonna dry hop your beer, if you're making an IPA or just a pale ale, a hoppy pale ale or something like that, it can leave some hop particulate floating in the beer if you don't give it enough time to settle out. So that could be a concern if you're trying to get these beers out quickly. That could be a thing. So we'll next go into extracts. Extracts have been around for actually quite a while, longer than you would think that they'd have been around. So since the late 1800s, they had already been making quite a bit of hop extract, and at that time they were using a different method than we typically use now. They were just extracting with ethanol and water, so using the ethanol to pull out the alpha acids and such from the hops, and that would be your extract that you'd use. Now we have some better extracting technology. We can use hypercritical CO2 or liquid CO2, depending on where you're at. The U.S. typically is going to be using the hypercritical CO2, and like England will use liquid CO2 extraction typically. And they use that to extract the resins and the hop oils out of the hops. And that's what the extract is. Different types of extracts. So there's row hop extracts, which contain less isoalpha acids, and some can contain beta and also hop oils. They can be used to help prevent light struck characteristics from beer. So when beer gets hit by light, it's not going to present those light struck flavor compounds as quickly. And compared to traditional bittering compounds, these are going to be about at 70% as bitter. So you'll have to make an adjustment for that. The beta acid, there's beta acid extracts that with the hop oils that are used to reduce the kettle foaming and to adjust the hop oil level in the beer. So if you want more hop oils, more flavor, that would be a good extract to think about. There are iso extracts, which contain the isoalpha acids, so your isomerized alpha acids that you want that are going to bitter it. And that's the typical type of extract that you're going to find that's available to you. And it's at around 30% isoalpha acids, so with that in mind, you'll just add extract as needed to get up to the bitterness that you're looking for. There are also tetra extracts, which are extracts of tetrahydroisoalpha acids, which, when added to a beer, can help stabilize the foam and protect against the light struck flavor development. The same as with the beta extracts. And it's perceived as a bit more bitter than the traditional bittering compounds, the isoalpha acids. So there's also hexa extracts, and they're similar to the tetra extracts. They'll also be involved with foam stabilization and light protection. But they're less bitter than the traditional bittering compounds. The hop aroma extracts are going to be just essentially extracts of the essential oils or blends of the essential oils. So you can find particular oils that you're interested in, like spicy, peppery oils, or more fruity type oils, so that you can make the beer up kind of in certain particular flavor categories, I would say. And so they also make various blends that try to emulate different hops that you might use. So it's pretty versatile, and they're making a lot of different blends to try to fill the market as best they can for the needs of the brewer. So the question is, should you use extract? And I've had some beers that they use probably too much extract, so there's definitely downsides to extracts, but we're going to go over both the advantages and disadvantages, of which there are both. And so to answer this question, we're going to ask ourselves what type of beer we're making. If we're making IPAs or double IPAs, using the extracts can be really useful because you, first thing, to get that same level of bitterness, you would otherwise have to use a lot of hops, and so you could get a lot of grassy, green notes in your beer from the cone itself, or the hops when they're cut up in pellets. And it also saves you space, since extract takes up a lot less space than either pellets or the whole cones would. Is the head of the beer, the foam, collapsing too quickly? If it is, you might be able to use tetra extract or the hexa extract to kind of keep it the head of the beer from collapsing too quickly. And so extracts can also be stored for a long term, and they're good for, especially if there's times where the hops that you want aren't like bad seasons and such like that, where you can't get as much. It can protect you against that and keep your beer consistent. So if you use some of this in it on bad years where you have less, you can adjust it in another way and still have a good bitterness from these extracts that you're using. The advantages of the extracts is that they don't cost a lot to ship or store. They are quick to use, and determining utilization is simple. You don't lose any wort because of extracts, so there's no leafy areas that can suck up that can suck the wort up, so you won't have any loss from using extract. It can make the beer more stable and uniform from batch to batch, so there's specific types of extracts, so if you have a particular need, you are likely to be able to find an extract that can suit your purpose. It can help protect it from light and stabilize the foam. And it's good for avoiding those grassy plant-like aromas that I was talking about, associated with using high amounts of hop cones or pellets. So the disadvantages of extract is that other than bitterness, they don't really provide much hop character. So it's kind of monochromatic. You just end up with like a bitter drink, and you don't get those nice piney aromas or fruity aromas and flavors that you can get from certain hops, spicy aromas, and so on. With just your typical iso-alpha extracts. So, and a little bit can go a long way, but if you use a lot, it can really mess up the beer. Kind of thickens it and kind of just obliterates your palate, I should say. So there's less versatility compared to especially pellets, but cones as well, because of all the different varieties and such that you have, and types of pellets. So the extract's also kind of sticky and viscous, so it will kind of thicken. You'll get sort of a thickened mouthfeel, which I guess can be good too, if you need that. And it's one dimensional. There's only like one dimension. If you've ever, what you should do is you should taste the extract at least once. So taste that, and then you can go from there. It's really bitter and yeah, you'll probably only do it once. All right, so those are the different products. We'll also be looking now at the varieties and the classifications there. And so the hops book has kind of suggested some classifications for the varieties, and I've made a little figure on the side. It's kind of cutting some of it off with my picture, but I've kind of edited it a little bit so that it's just easy to look at for here, but you should read through it in pages 136 to 137. You can read through this and look at some of the different varieties that are out there. But you have bittering hops are a main type of hops. There's also aroma hops, which is kind of broken down here as New World hops, and also it can be like special hops and stuff like that. Organic, proprietary, meaning that a particular company had come up with that hop variety. And T is for traditional, so the aromas, flavors and such have a traditional taste and profile to them. And so these are basic rules, but they're not necessarily set and firm rules. So there's been many people that they'll take a bittering hop and they can dry hop with it or something, or put it in the whirlpool and for aroma, or using an aroma hop for bittering. So both are possible, and there's no set rule for it. So feel free to experiment and go against what popular belief has, like, try to set down, I guess. So some popular bittering hops. So we're gonna look at a couple bittering hops, and bittering hops are typically are hops that have high levels of alpha acids. Magnum is a good example of a bittering hop. And comes from Germany. That's particularly popular. It has over there, I should say, over here too, but it has a high alpha acid of 11 to 16%. Millennium is a dual-purpose hop, New World hop variety, but it can also be used as an aroma hop, and it has alpha acids between 14 and 16.5% is typical for it. And these are them. This is from Hop Union. I like how they have things set up at Hop Union, so you can go through and you can see how much alpha acids they have, comparison of how much beta acids they have, their other oil profiles and such, and talks about what the aromas are. The Magnum, no distinct aroma characteristics, so it's not used quite as much as an aroma hop as Millennium is. So resinous, floral, herbal tones and such. So this is mostly used as a bittering hop, but it does have a good aroma, and it could be a good candidate for putting in later in the boil or dry hopping with. So we'll also look at some popular aroma hops. So aroma hops are hops that have pleasant aroma, high levels of oils usually, and more types of oils essentially. But they can also be dual purpose and have high alpha acids as well. Saaz hops are traditional aroma hop grown extensively in the Czech Republic, but other places as well. Highly used throughout Europe. And Simcoe, which is a New World type hop again, which is used largely in the U.S. and has a strong aroma of citrus and blackcurrant. So we'll look at those now. And so you can see their alpha acids are, well, this size alpha acids are quite low. Beta acids are around the same level. But there's can be a good level of oils, but it doesn't necessarily need to have a lot of oils if the oils that it have give it a pleasant and enjoyable aroma and flavor. So, as Saz does. So, with Simcoe, that is a registered brand. It has also high alpha acid, so it can be used as a bittering hop as well, so it's dual purpose. So has a lot of different flavors going on in it, has a lot of oil in it, 2 to 2.5 milliliters per 100 grams. So they're just different sides of things. So let's move on from here. They're hop blends, so these are different blends of varieties, and these are going to be proprietary. So these are the main ones. And so they'll give you different descriptions of what the flavors are, but they don't tell you what's in it. At least until later. I'm not exactly sure when the trademark ends or if it ends at some point. But yes. And then lastly, we'll talk about aged hops. And so most breweries are going to want your hops to be as fresh as possible, with the best aroma and greatest bittering power. But in some cases, some Belgian breweries and Belgian style ales, like Lambics, you'll have aged hops where they'll be aged for a long time and they'll lose their aroma and flavor properties. They'll keep their antimicrobial properties for the most part, and so. Unless you're making those styles of beers, you'll probably want them fresh, so that you can get the best flavor and aroma profile in your beer as possible. But there are some uses for older hops. Other than that, we'll move on to flavor in the next lecture.